As you can see, seeing here, very different operations. But let's just kind of start back at basics and piggyback on what Mr. Whitman was talking about earlier and talk beginning management. I assume that the way you manage today is not the way you started out managing. And I'd love to hear just kind of how you think that your management style has evolved over the years, some things you've learned, some things maybe you didn't do so right, and wish that someone had told you at this age or at the stage of farming. Lon, maybe start with you. I mean, you were really thrown into it.
Yeah, thrown into it so suddenly. Of course, having worked side by side with these same people all along, think, oh, now I'm going to be their boss. And how's all this going to work? And so I have a degree in agricultural economics, but it wasn't really about management. So from the early on, I read, anytime there's an article about working with employees or motivating employees or something, I would always read it. I've always been a big fan of doing your homework in that direction. And this open management style thing, now there have been some books written, the guy's name is Case, I think. There are several. They published about 10 years ago. Well, it was about 20 years ago, I found an article that said, it was a survey of what motivates employees. And, of course, it was talked about money, but there was things besides salary. It was saying there's things besides salary that your employees care about. And one was being, quote, in on stuff. And I thought, yeah, I like being in on stuff, too. I wish I would have been in on more stuff, with my father and my grandfather, but I was just treated like an employee. And I thought, you know what? This being in on stuff, it wouldn't cost any money. And I could let employees be in on stuff without having to give them any money. And it wouldn't necessarily hurt anything, and, it might help, and they might have ideas or appreciation for the kinds of decisions that I'm going to have to make. And so from 20-some years ago, I've always let my employees be in on stuff, whether it was how much it costs to trade a tractor, or what salaries were going to be, what benefits cost, what the insurance cost, what so-and-so's new pickup cost, what I sold the corn for, what the basis was, just whatever it was, they were in on it. And so, since they were in on stuff, a lot of times they'd go ahead and they would bring me a bid. So I wouldn't have to spend time chasing around town or looking in from the High Plains Journal for something to buy. Say, hey, look what I found. We could have got a whatever, for $11,000 cheaper than something. And so that's kind of how our place works, is everybody is thinking and talking all the time. We spend almost an hour together every morning at a big table for coffee. And the guys are always bringing, hey, look at this fertilizer bid I brought. Or here I was at John Deere this morning, and they say they can offer us a this or that, or we can convert to the RTK system, or whatever it is. And so I don't really spend any time now that a lot of my neighbors do looking for deals and opportunities, because everybody on my crew or my team does it, and I think they enjoy it more than I do. So it makes me simple. And then we talk about everything. They don't make any large decisions by themselves, so we discuss it, and then I usually give them my approval. But that's how it started. And then I have a friend that works as a management consultant for McKinsey, and he saw how I was doing things, and he said, there's these books that have been written on doing stuff this way. And I said, really? Yeah, so I've bought them, but I haven't read them. I guess I was doing it before the book.
Now, are there any pitfalls to being that open? Have you been burned at all?
Yeah, I don't really think so. Of course, people in town are going to know what's going on. And I said, aren't you worried, that everyone's going to know? And I said, not really, because everyone, if they don't know something, they make it up. And it's probably twice as outrageous as the truth. So, the stories that come back to me are twice as exaggerated. So, no, it really doesn't bother me. And I do know that sometimes my employees, they're proud. They're kind of, they want to come down and brag about how many LDP cents we got per bushel, or how many dollars per hour cheaper we traded tractors than so-and-so. So, but there's a lot of pride that goes along with the whole operation, and a lot of ownership buy-in that you get when you let empower employees to do things like that.
Now, I'm going to lead questions, but if you have a question that you hear, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll kind of have a free-flowing discussion here. You got one.
Do the employees have ownership equity, or just hourly?
They're just hourly, and we try different percentage bonuses and things, but they like knowing exactly what they're going to get. I do give them a big annual bonus now, kind of based on how the farm did that year that they've come to expect. But no, they don't. One of them does own 2 quarters of ground on his own that I have helped him buy, and I've given all of them the chance, whenever I've made land purchases, to come in at any level that they want. But there's only one of them that's interested in owning his own farm ground. They've all had the opportunity.
Rob, do you want to talk about how your management style's changed?
Sure. Yeah, when my cousin and I first started the business, we took over from my father and my uncle, and they gave us a great opportunity. My dad had stepped out a few years before from day to day. He had become an active. He had joined the state legislature, and so he wasn't there maybe day to day. He still was in charge of a lot of the financial things and so on. And then my uncle was 55 or so years old and ready to slow down a little bit. And the transition went really well. We had to certainly learn a lot of things. And then about 2 years later, my brother came in to the operation. He worked for us essentially for a year or so as an employee, and then came in and was interested in the dairy side of things. So we started our dairy operation and began to expand that. But as far as from the beginning, we had learned from our fathers. I think they certainly knew how to manage things. I don't think they always did things right, and I think we learned from them and began to take steps. And we're always learning. Right now, like I said, we have essentially divided our responsibilities. We have over 50 full-time employees. I don't know that we have an open management style like that, but I think we do try to keep them informed. We have worked on trying to develop, as Mr. Whitman showed, sort of a breakdown of our responsibilities and so on and so forth. We have job description for all of our employees, and I think they're aware of what they're doing. And as they change, we try to update them. Do we do it perfectly? Probably not. And I think we've got to keep reminding ourselves to do that, to take that next step to update and to make sure people understanding what they are to do. We do evaluations, and we also do compensate, I think, fairly well, and but allow them to grow as well. And those that do show management ability, we have moved them up not only in responsibility, but well as compensation. And we do have a lot of employees that have been there a long time. And like I mentioned earlier, we are kind of in the process right now of taking that next step for ourselves, but also including some of our employees in maybe some stepped up management positions. Sometimes that can be difficult. What do you let go, and what do you really, where are you really needed, or where do you really want to be? And I think sometimes you have to think about that, not just think, well, if I don't do it, it won't get done right. That's not necessarily the case. It may not get done right the first day, but if you train well and find the right people, it's only going to help you in the business, but it's also going to help you on the personal side as well, because you'll be able to have some freed up time and so on and so forth to do the things that really matter.
Chad, how about you?
I can see one problem that a lot of us have is pride. When my barn burned down in the early 90s, I didn't have anything left. I drove a school bus, I drove a truck, just to have cash to live. And as my operation started to grow, I still didn't want anybody to know how much money I didn't have. And when I finally hired a bookkeeper, and had to write that check for somebody to tell me that I didn't have any money. My operation started moving forward as our combines grew, our harvesting business grew. I've got 3 guys that have been on 12 years of harvest with me. When we split our combines up, these guys have their jobs. It's their customer. I'll oversee all the jobs. I'll go with these crew foremen when we settle up at the end of the job. But it's basically their job. I'm overseeing them. Same way with our office at home. I've got a brother that works for me. He's a CPA, handles all of our financial stuff, deals with our banks. And, I see my banker once or twice a year. But it's just letting people just designate different parts of your business to have other people run them and oversee them is made it a lot easier for me to grow.